My name is Betty A. Baez, and I am 34 years old. I didn't even want to have dinner that night. It had been a long week, the kind that leaves your body tired but your mind louder, and I was sick of pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. But my mom insisted. She said it would be nice to have one evening where everyone sat together and acted like a family. She said we'd been tense for months and we needed a reset. She said, "Just one dinner, Betty. Just one night where we don't fight." And because I still foolishly believed that keeping the peace meant something, I agreed. I set the table like it was a holiday. I cooked enough food for a small army, because in my house, food has always been the thing that made hard conversations softer. I roasted chicken, made rice, warmed bread, sliced fruit, and set out plates like I wasn't feeding a room full of resentment. My daughter, Isla, helped me carry things back and forth from the kitchen, quiet in that watchful way she gets when she's reading the room. My son Jesse sat at the table, scrolling on his phone, shoulders slightly hunched, his posture already defensive even before anyone said a word. Jesse is 12. He's sensitive, quiet, the kind of kid who tries hard but doesn't always know how to show it. He's a little behind in school, not because he's lazy, but because his brain moves differently than the system wants it to. He needs patience, repetition, and someone who believes him when he says he's trying. He's sweet. He notices things. He worries about other people's feelings, and he is mine. That's why I was already on edge before anyone even sat down. Because my sister Erin had been living in my house for 3 months with her 2 kids, and every day since she moved in had felt like I was slowly being dared to snap. Erin doesn't say thank you. Erin doesn't offer help unless it comes with strings. Erin has a way of taking up space like she's owed it, like you should be grateful to be useful to her. 3 months earlier, Erin's husband kicked her out. He called me crying, the kind of messy crying you only do when you've reached the end of your own denial. He said he couldn't do it anymore. He said he was tired of the drama, the spending, the way Erin treated everyone like they existed to serve her. He said he was filing, and he was done. Erin didn't call me. She didn't ask. She announced. She showed up at my door with suitcases, her kids looking frightened and exhausted, and my parents behind her with that familiar expression that meant they'd already decided what I was supposed to do. I let her in because of the kids. I cleared out the guest room, made closet space, set up a little study corner in the dining room so her kids could do homework. I told myself it would be a few weeks, a month at most. Erin never once offered to pay for anything. Not food, not utilities, not even the toilet paper her kids went through like it was water. Meanwhile, Erin somehow had money for new shoes, hair appointments, and handbags she didn't need. When I asked how she was affording it, she shrugged and said our parents were helping her. Later, I found out they were sending her money every week. Not for groceries, not for rent, not for rebuilding, for appearances. And I swallowed it. I kept saying, it's temporary, it'll pass. Don't make it worse. Don't traumatize the kids. Until that dinner. My parents arrived first. My dad carrying a bottle of wine like he was walking into a normal family moment instead of a pressure cooker. Erin came down last, taking her time, her kids trailing behind her. She sat with a casual confidence that made my skin prickle, like she had forgotten she was in my house, at my table, eating food I cooked after a shift that already drained me. At first, the conversation was stiff but manageable. My dad tried to talk about sports. My mom asked Isla about school. Erin's kids stayed quiet, glancing at Erin before answering anything, like they were trained to monitor her mood. Jesse mostly stared at his plate. I watched Jesse's hands more than his face. I always do when he's nervous. He was holding his fork too tight, his knuckles pale, his gaze fixed on the food like if he kept it there, he wouldn't have to look at anyone who might hurt him. Then Erin turned to him. It was so casual, it almost didn't register, like she was commenting on the weather. She looked at my son and said, "Some kids are just born behind." Then she laughed. Not a giggle, a real laugh, like she'd just delivered something clever and expected the room to reward her for it. Everything in me went cold. Jesse didn't say a word. He just quietly put his fork down. That sound shouldn't have mattered. Metal against ceramic, small, controlled, soft. But it hit me harder than Erin's laugh, because it was my son making himself smaller in real time. It was him deciding that defending himself wasn't worth the risk. It was him retreating inside himself because he knew this table wasn't safe. My mom's eyes snapped to me immediately, panicked. My dad tried to change the subject too fast, talking louder about something that didn't matter. Erin kept smiling like she'd done nothing wrong. I felt my voice come out before I even thought it through. Behind, I repeated, letting the word hang there. Behind, like how you and your kids are still in my house and eating my groceries. Erin froze. Her eyes went wide like I'd slapped her in front of everyone. My mom whispered, "Please don't do this." But it was already happening. The moment had already cracked open. Erin tried to laugh it off first, the same way she always did when she crossed a line. She said I was overreacting. She said it was just a joke. She said I was too sensitive, and if Jesse couldn't handle a little humor, then maybe that was part of his problem. That's when I looked her dead in the eyes and felt something inside me settle. "If you're so funny," I said, calm and sharp, "maybe go rent a comedy club instead of living in my guest room." Silence dropped onto the table. Erin's kids stopped chewing. Isla stared down at her plate. Jesse didn't move, but I could see his shoulders tense, like he was bracing for yelling. My mom stood halfway up from her chair, then sat back down like she didn't know what to do with her hands. My dad muttered something about timing, about how we didn't need to do this right now. Erin's face hardened. And then she said the one thing that always made me want to throw something. "Well, if it's such a burden," she snapped, "maybe you shouldn't have offered in the first place." I set my fork down slowly. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, turned off the stove like I was closing the night, and came back to the table with a calm I didn't feel. "Cool," I said. "Then consider this your notice." Everyone started talking at once. My mom said I was being dramatic. My dad said I was making it worse. Erin's voice rose, insisting she had nowhere to go, that I was heartless, that I was doing this to her kids. Her children started crying quietly, like they'd heard this fight before and knew exactly where it led. Jesse pushed his chair back and left the table without a word, heading to his room like he was trying to disappear. I watched him go, and something in me hardened even more. "I'm not doing this anymore," I said. "You have until the end of the month. I'll help you with the first month's rent somewhere else, just to make sure the kids aren't stranded, but after that, you're on your own." Erin stared at me like she couldn't comprehend consequences applying to her. My mom looked like she wanted to beg me to take it back. My dad looked tired in that way men look when they've enabled something for too long and now they're watching the bill come due. And Erin, my sister, sat at my table in my house eating my food and acted like I was the villain for finally saying the quiet part out loud. When the dinner finally ended and everyone scattered to their corners of the house, I went into the laundry room and cried until my throat hurt. Not because I regretted what I said, because I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The next morning, Erin acted like nothing happened. That's what stunned me most. Not the lack of apology, I didn't expect one, but the way she moved through my kitchen like the fight at dinner had been a scene from someone else's life. She stood at my counter in one of my mugs, sipping coffee slowly, scrolling her phone with her thumb like she was bored, like she was waiting for me to come to my senses and undo the boundary I'd set. My boyfriend Marco was in the hallway tying Jesse's shoes while Isla packed her backpack. The morning routine in our house is usually a steady rhythm. That day, it felt like a balancing act performed over broken glass. Erin's kids didn't look up. They ate toast with jelly and barely touched it, eyes down, shoulders rounded, moving carefully. Their silence made me angrier than Erin's confidence, because kids don't get that quiet unless they've learned quiet is safer than speaking. Hila met my eyes once over the counter. No words. Just a look that said she understood more than she should have to understand at 10 years old. Marco caught me a few minutes later in the doorway when Erin was out of earshot. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, but it was the kind of nod that meant I was holding myself together by force. His gaze held on mine, steady and serious. "You sure about the deadline?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I have to be." He didn't argue. He didn't lecture. He just kissed my forehead quickly and said, "Then we're doing it." That should have been the end of it, a countdown to the end of the month, uncomfortable but manageable. Instead, the house shifted. It started small, almost deniable. Erin slammed doors harder than she needed to. She left plates in the sink and didn't rinse them, like she wanted me to see the mess, and choose whether to clean it or live with it. She forgot to wipe down the counter after her kids made crumbs, then walked past it like she was blind. By the second day, it felt intentional. Not messy, strategic. Erin wanted me to explode. She wanted a moment she could point to later and say, "See, this is why she's impossible. This is why we had to leave. This is why I'm the victim." I kept my voice calm. I asked her to pick up after herself. I reminded her about the end-of-month deadline. I told her again that I would help with the first month's rent, just to give the kids a soft landing, and then she was on her own. She smirked when I said it, like she didn't believe me. That night, my mom called. I didn't even need to answer to know what it would be. Her voice has a particular sound when she's gearing up to smooth things over, like she's already decided you're wrong, and she's about to help you see it kindly. She didn't mean it, my mom said as soon as I said hello. Erin is under so much stress. She's embarrassed. She's scared. She mocked my son, I replied. My mom sighed. Betty, Jessie is struggling in school. Maybe you're projecting. Maybe you're sensitive because you're worried. I almost laughed, but it came out bitter. I'm worried because people like Erin say things like that and then laugh. She's your sister, my mom said, like that should erase everything. She has 2 children. You can't just throw them out. I didn't throw the kids out, I said, keeping my voice even. I told Erin she has until the end of the month. I offered to help with rent. That's more than generous. My mom lowered her voice as if she were sharing a secret. Your dad and I are helping her. I know, I said, and she's not using it to feed her kids or save for a place. She's buying things. That's not fair, my mom snapped. You don't know what she needs. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I know what my grocery bill looks like. I know what my utility bill looks like. I know what it costs to have 6 people in this house when only 2 of us are working and paying. My mom went quiet, then tried again with emotion. Please don't make this worse, she whispered. You don't want to be the reason the family falls apart. That phrase landed like an old chain around my ankle. The reason. The one who causes the crack. The one who should have stayed quiet. I ended the call politely, but my hands were shaking when I set the phone down. 2 days later, Erin missed school pickup. It wasn't a traffic issue. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. Jessie and Isla both came home on the bus, confused and quiet, and Erin's kids were dropped off by a neighbor who looked uncomfortable even standing on my porch. Erin walked in 40 minutes later like nothing happened, carrying a shopping bag and a soda. You forgot your kids, I said. She blinked slowly. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was your unpaid nanny now. Marco was in the doorway watching. He didn't say a word, but his jaw tightened so hard I could see the muscle jump. I felt my anger rise hot, but I swallowed it. Erin wanted heat. Erin wanted noise. Erin wanted me to become the story she'd already been writing. That night, I caught her in the living room with my dad on speakerphone. She was pacing, voice loud and dramatic, talking about how unsafe she felt here, how I was unstable, how Jessie was disrespectful, how I was weaponizing the house against her. Her kids sat on the floor watching cartoons, while their mother built a narrative over their heads like it was bedtime entertainment. When she saw me, she didn't stop. She looked straight at me and kept talking. That's when I understood. The dinner wasn't the real turning point. The real turning point was that Erin had decided she was going to punish me for finally saying no. And she wasn't going to do it quietly. I didn't mean to come home early that day. My schedule almost never allowed it. I'd swapped shifts with a coworker who needed the morning off, and for once, the universe handed me a small gift. I pulled into the driveway thinking I'd surprise Isla, maybe take her out for ice cream before dinner. She'd been holding herself together through weeks of tension like a little soldier, and I wanted to give her something that felt normal. I came in through this garage quietly, my keys already in my pocket, my purse still on my shoulder. The house sounded wrong. Not loud, not chaotic, just off. At first, I thought maybe Erin was on the phone again, building another case against me out loud. Then I heard it clearly, voices upstairs. Erin's voice, unmistakable. And then laughter. Not casual laughter. Not the polite chuckle you give when you're passing someone in a hallway. This laughter was warm, familiar, shared. My chest tightened. I stood still at the bottom of the stairs, one hand on the railing, my breath shallow enough that I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. I didn't want to know. I knew that. There's a moment before certain truths where your body begs you to turn around, to preserve the version of your life that still exists if you don't confirm anything. But my feet moved anyway. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling too loud, even though the house was quiet. The hallway stretched longer than usual. The guest room door cracked open at the end, like it was inviting me to see something I couldn't unsee. I didn't need to see much. Erin was standing too close to Marco. His back was to the door, her hand resting on his arm in a way that wasn't accidental. He wasn't pulling away. His shoulders were relaxed, comfortable, like this wasn't the first time. My vision blurred instantly. I stepped back before they could notice me. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them there. I don't even remember how I made it back downstairs. My legs were shaking so badly I had to grip the banister to keep from collapsing. I stood in the kitchen and waited. 5 minutes passed, maybe 10. Time did strange things in that space. My hands felt numb. My thoughts raced and stalled at the same time. Every memory of the past few weeks rearranged itself with a clarity that felt cruel. The door slamming, the missed pickup, the smirks, the way Erin looked at Marco when she thought I wasn't watching. Then she came down alone. She didn't see me at first. She was fixing her hair in her phone camera, smoothing it down, adjusting her top like she was getting ready to leave the house. When she finally noticed me standing there, her eyes flicked up, and for a split second something crossed her face. Calculation. I asked her one question. How long has it been going on? She froze, then tilted her head like she was deciding which performance to give me. Confusion. Innocence. Or honesty twisted just enough to hurt. Then I saw it. That smug half-smile. The one that says I have something you don't. That was it. I don't remember deciding to move. My body did it before my mind could catch up. I grabbed her hair and dragged her toward the front door. She screamed, called me crazy, said I'd lost my mind, that I was proving everything she'd been telling everyone about me. I didn't care. I opened the door and shoved her out onto the porch. She stumbled, barely catching herself, her words turning into shrill accusations as she scrambled to stand. I turned back inside without another word. Marco was standing at the bottom of the stairs. He looked stunned, not angry, not defensive, just shocked, like he hadn't believed consequences applied to him either. I walked up to him and punched him in the face, hard enough that I felt one of his teeth give under my knuckle. He didn't swing back. He didn't even raise his hands. He just stood there bleeding, staring at me like he couldn't understand how the world had flipped so fast. I pointed to the door. Get out! By midnight, the house was empty. Erin, her kids, Marco, gone. When I slammed the door that night, the sound echoed through the house like punctuation at the end of a sentence that had been running too long. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch in the dark, the microwave clock ticking minute by minute into morning. My hands still ached. My chest still felt tight. But beneath it all, there was no regret. Just shock. The next morning, Isla didn't ask a single question. She came into my room around 7, crawled into bed beside me, and laid there with her head on my shoulder, like she used to when she was little. Her breathing was slow and steady, like she was anchoring herself to something solid. I almost told her everything. I almost said, "Your dad isn't coming back." But the words felt too heavy, too adult. She was 10. How do you explain that her aunt, who painted nails with her and watched cartoons on Saturday mornings, had been sleeping with her dad while I worked late shifts to keep the house running? So I told her the truth in the smallest way I could. "We're going to be okay," I said. "It's just going to be us for a while." She nodded. I think she already knew. Later that afternoon, Jesse came home and asked if Marco had gone on a trip. I told him yes, a short one. He didn't push, but he kept glancing toward the guest room door like he was listening for something that wasn't there anymore. Erin's kids hadn't said goodbye to him. No one had. That silence carved something small and sharp into his chest, even if he didn't show it. The house stayed quiet all week. Too quiet. I used to dream about silence. With 6 people under one roof, it felt like a luxury. But when it finally arrived, it didn't feel like peace. It felt like something had been scooped out of the walls. My mom called 3 days later. She'd already spoken to Erin. I could hear it in the way she avoided details, the way she asked questions without really asking. I told her the truth. Not every detail, but enough. She went quiet for a long time, then said something I wasn't expecting. "Betty, you didn't have to kick the kids out too." "I didn't," I said. "I kicked Erin out. She chose to take them." She asked if I'd spoken to Marco since. I hadn't. I didn't want to. The day after that, I took half a day off work and went to my first therapy session. Sitting in front of a stranger and explaining why my life had imploded without sounding unhinged was harder than I expected. But the therapist listened without interrupting. When I told her about Jesse quietly setting his fork down at dinner, about Erin's laugh, about the note I found later on my pillow that said, "You always play the victim," she didn't flinch. She said anger was normal. That betrayal cuts deeper when it comes from people you've protected. That night, I started boxing up what Erin left behind. Her shampoo in the guest bathroom. Her kids' school supplies still scattered on the dining table. A single sock in the laundry room that didn't belong to anyone in my family. I couldn't throw it away. I couldn't look at it. So I put everything into one big plastic bin and slid it into the garage. On Sunday, something strange happened. I was walking upstairs when I noticed the guest room door was open. I hadn't touched it. No one else was home. I stepped inside slowly. The bed was made, and folded neatly on the pillow was one of Erin's cardigans, the beige designer one she never let her daughter wear. Under it sat a scrap of paper with 2 words written in her handwriting. You'll regret. I locked every door in the house that night, and I slept with a baseball bat beside my bed. I didn't know yet, but the war had just shifted from loud to quiet. I never told anyone about the cardigan. Not my mom, not my therapist, not even Marlene, who had been texting me hourly since the night everything blew up, offering to come over with wine and matches. I folded the sweater like it was radioactive, slid it into a trash bag, and drove 25 minutes across town to drop it into a donation bin behind a gas station that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. I didn't want Erin's fingerprints anywhere near my life. I didn't want a single thread that could lead back to my house. I told myself that was the end of it. For a few days, the house stayed quiet. No surprise visits, no texts, no dramatic posts online. I let myself believe that Erin had wanted one last scare, one final reminder that she could still reach me, and now she was gone. Then the school called. The assistant principal sounded cautious, the way people do when they don't want to panic you, but also don't want to minimize something that matters. She said there had been a minor incident during recess, nothing physical, just words. Another girl had said something unkind to Isla, and Isla had gotten upset. They thought I should know. I picked Isla up early. In the car, I asked what happened, keeping my voice light, like I was asking about a bad grade instead of a landmine. She stared out the window for a long moment before answering. Maya said my aunt told people you're crazy, she said quietly, and that Dad didn't leave. You made him. My hands tightened on the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I asked if she believed that. She shook her head immediately. No, but she said it like she wanted me to. That was when I understood what Erin was doing. She wasn't trying to hurt me directly anymore. She was trying to poison the ground around my children. She was planting doubt in places I couldn't easily reach and then watching to see what grew. That night, after the kids were asleep, I went into the garage and pulled the plastic storage bin out from the corner. I hadn't touched it since the night I dumped Erin's things in there. Old notebooks, her kids' school folders, a tangled mess of chargers and socks and half-used makeup. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I just needed to know if she'd left more behind. That's when I found the envelope. It was tucked inside a pink folder that used to belong to her daughter, hidden between worksheets and coloring pages like it was part of something innocent. My name was written across the front in thick black marker, pressed hard enough that the indentations showed through the paper. Inside were printed pages. At first, I thought they were just receipts. Then I looked closer. They were screenshots. My bank statements. Cropped text conversations between Marco and me, cut and angled to look suspicious. A Venmo transfer I'd sent to a coworker months earlier when I covered lunch, circled in red like evidence of something illicit. An old message I'd sent to a friend late one night, venting about how exhausted I was and how sometimes I wanted to run away from everything, highlighted and annotated. Each page had notes in Erin's handwriting, arrows, underlines, phrases like pattern of instability and financial recklessness. She had been building a case. I sat on the cold garage floor with the folder spread out around me, my chest tight, my thoughts racing. This wasn't impulse. This wasn't desperation. This was preparation. She had been collecting pieces of my life, rearranging them into a story where I was the villain long before the affair ever came to light. I thought back to the times she'd asked strange questions. If I had a life insurance policy, if I'd ever considered refinancing, if she could grab my mail while I was out of town, if I'd share my phone password just in case. I thought she was nosy. She was gathering leverage. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. You won't answer him. That's not fair. No name, no signature. Another message came 20 seconds later. You can't pretend this never happened. There are consequences to everything, Betty. I didn't reply. I took screenshots, blocked the number, and only then noticed the timestamps. The first message had been sent 10 minutes before I opened the envelope. She knew I'd find it. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, my head pounding, my nerves stretched thin. I called in sick to work without explanation, packed the kids' lunches like it was any other day, kissed them goodbye, and then got in my car and drove straight to my parents' house. Not to cry, not to yell, to get the truth. My mom answered the door in her robe, toast in hand, blinking like she'd expected me. I walked past her without a word. My dad sat at the kitchen table, coffee steaming. the morning news murmuring in the background like nothing in the world was wrong. "Did you know?" I asked flatly. Neither of them asked what I meant. My mom spoke first. She said Aaron had mentioned being worried about me, that I seemed overwhelmed, that I was doing too much, that maybe I was close to burning out and someone needed to be ready to step in. My dad stared at his coffee like it might swallow him whole. "So you knew enough," I said. "Enough to warn me, enough to ask questions." "We didn't think she meant anything serious," my mom said, looking away. That was it. They didn't know everything, but they knew enough to see this coming and chose silence instead. I left without another word. On the drive home, Marlene sent me a video about narcissistic siblings who hide behind victimhood. I pulled over and called her. For the first time, I told the whole story without softening it. The freeloading, the cruelty to Jesse, the affair, the folder, the messages. She didn't hesitate. "Stop protecting them," she said. "They've been writing your story for years. It's time you tell it." That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat at my kitchen table and typed. I didn't dramatize, I didn't editorialize, I wrote facts, dates, actions, patterns. I attached photos of the folder, the screenshots, Aaron's notes. I sent it to the extended family group chat. Every aunt, uncle, cousin, and family friend Aaron had ever convinced that she was the struggling, misunderstood one. Then I turned off notifications and made dinner. It took less than 10 minutes. My cousin Nikki messaged me privately. She said Aaron had sent her strange text last year about me being unstable and controlling. She thought it was venting at the time. Then my uncle chimed in. He'd given Aaron money twice that year for groceries and later saw photos of her at a spa weekend. Then my dad tried to defend her. He said Aaron was under stress, that she didn't mean harm. That defense lasted 5 minutes. Someone dropped a photo from a barbecue months earlier. Aaron and Marco sitting too close, her hand on his leg, his smile too comfortable, a photo I had never seen. I didn't say another word. By midnight, the truth had done what yelling never could. When the house finally went quiet, Jesse came downstairs with his tablet. He asked if Marco was coming back. I told him no. I didn't lie, I didn't sugarcoat. He nodded slowly and said, "I still love him, but I don't think I can ever trust him again." 12 years old, and he already understood more than most adults. After he went back upstairs, I took the trash out and stood in the cool night air for a long moment. The house didn't feel heavy anymore, but Aaron was silent. And Aaron is never silent for long. It took 6 days. 6 full days of nothing from Aaron. No texts, no calls, no dramatic posts pretending she was healing or letting go of toxic people. No surprise appearances in places she shouldn't have been. Just silence. And that silence was what unsettled me most. Erin had never been quiet in her life. She reacted fast, loudly, and with an audience. If she was silent now, it meant she was planning. On the 7th day, the email came. It was from Marco's account. Just one sentence. "Please don't tell Isla the full story. Let me still be her dad." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Not because I didn't already know I was going to say no, but because of the entitlement packed into that single sentence. After betraying me in my own house, after helping Aaron dismantle my family from the inside, he still thought he had a vote. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to Marlene, who responded within seconds. Bold of him to assume he has any authority left. That weekend, I booked another therapy session and said the thing I'd been circling for days. I think I need to tell Isla the truth. Not everything, but enough. My therapist didn't rush to stop me. She asked why. And I said, because the longer I protect them from reality, the more alone my kids are in it. She nodded slowly and said something that landed hard. Children sense lies even when they don't know the facts. Not telling them the truth doesn't protect them. It teaches them not to trust their instincts. That night, Jesse came home from school with a folded piece of paper in his backpack. At first, I thought it was homework. Then I saw the handwriting. Aaron's. The note was short, rushed, and manipulative in that soft, poisonous way she perfected. "Tell your mom I'm sorry things ended this way. I never wanted to hurt her, but she was always the favorite. That's not your fault. I hope someday she forgives me." I sat down hard on the couch. It wasn't the apology that scared me. It was how she delivered it. Through my child. Through his school. Through a channel she had no right to access. I still don't know how she managed it. A classmate's parent. A shared pickup. Someone who didn't know the context and thought they were helping pass along a harmless message. I texted the school immediately and made it clear that Aaron was not to be allowed near either of my children for any reason. I didn't explain everything, but I didn't minimize it either. The tone shifted instantly. They took it seriously. That night, I sat both kids down. I told Ela first. I told her that her aunt had betrayed my trust and that her dad had made a choice that broke our family. I told her that none of it was her fault and that some people, even people we love, make decisions that mean they can't be safe in our lives anymore. She cried, quietly, not hysterically, the kind of crying that comes when something finally makes sense. Then she said something that broke me all over again. You should have told me sooner. I knew something was wrong. It felt worse not knowing. Jesse didn't say anything at first. He walked into the kitchen, picked the note Aaron had written out of the trash, and dropped it into the bin outside. He came back in, sat on the floor, and said, I still love Dad, but I don't think I can trust him anymore. 12 years old, and somehow steadier than the adults who caused all of this. After they went to bed, I sent one final message to the extended family. I told them I had spoken to the kids, that we were healing, that I wouldn't be answering any more questions or defending my choices. I thanked those who believed me and said I didn't need advice. Most replied with hearts. A few said they were proud of me. The next morning, I filed for divorce. The house has been quiet since then. Not the hollow quiet from shock, but the kind that settles after a fire when the smoke clears and you can finally see what's left standing. Isla and I go on walks after dinner now. Jesse is back in therapy and doesn't flinch every time his phone buzzes. I took a painting class just to see if I could sit in a room full of strangers without feeling watched. I could. Some days I still wake up angry. Some days I grieve years I can't get back. But I'm not haunted anymore. Aaron and Marco vanished after the group chat exploded. I'm sure they're still telling some version of the story where they're misunderstood victims. It doesn't matter. The only truth that matters lives under my roof. This time, no one gets in without earning it.